somewhere in the church, and she thought it was behind the cornerstone, which seems like a logical place for there to be a time capsule. So we had a guy, I don't remember who it was, who just came up here with a metal detector. And we said, here are some places we think there might be a time capsule. Would you check that out for us? And so he went hunting around and said, I reasonably think there is a time capsule right here behind the cornerstone. And we thought, well, let's cut that stone out and see what's there. And sure enough, there it was.
Did you feel like Indiana Jones?
It was pretty fun. I mean, I have a ton of pictures from the day when it came out. And Ben was there and a couple of other people. And we just set the stone down on the scaffolding and then started pulling stuff out. And it's all these papers. And we're just kind of really carefully setting them out to take a look and see what was inside.
How high up was it?
The stone, if you're standing on the ground, it's above your head height.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to get scaffolding to come up to it and then just gently lower it down on some pretty heavy lumber so that it wasn't going to break anything.
What were the dimensions of the stone?
It's like 3 by 3 and then about 4 inches thick of marble slab.
Not something you're picking up by hand.
No. So there's like two pretty hefty dudes out there
Yeah.
catching the thing and then lowering it down.
How did you know to look?
The memory. I mean,
Oh.
memory from Martha Palmer, who was pretty sure that there was a time capsule in there somewhere. And then other folks who've been in this church for generations, like Freddie Lockaby and a few other folks who like stories from their parents or when they were kids remember the church having been built.
And what year was that? It was built?
So it was started in 1922. My favorite story from the sanctuary was it was started in 1922, and it took a long time to build it. And somewhere along the lines, in 1924, it was still under construction, and the church didn't have enough money to finish it. Like the well was running dry. So they put out this plea to the town of Murphy and said, hey, we'd like to ask every income-earning person in the town of Murphy to donate 1 day's wage to help finish the chapel. And there's like an article in the Cherokee Scout from, I think it was February of 1924. So on one day in March of 1924, enough income-earning folks from downtown Murphy donated a day's wage in order to help finish the construction of this sanctuary.
Wow.
So that includes people who I presume were members of the church, but I also presume were not members of this church, who just thought it's good and a fitting thing for us to help finish this church that's right in the heart of downtown. So that's one of my favorite stories to tell about this sanctuary, because to me, it helps shape my imagination for what this building is for. Like, we hold it in trust for the sake of our community.
Mm-hmm.
So a goal would be to try to give it away for the good of the community that helped make it happen. So as much as we can give away our space to serve our neighbors, I think the better. And that's just kind of like the heart of the church generally. But with that being a part of our unique story, I just think that's a great origin story for this building.
Very neat.
Yeah.
I would be interested to know, of all the people that donated, I would doubt that they would all be a follower of a Methodist denomination. I would be curious to know who all donated and their reasons.
Yeah, it would be really interesting.
So how old is the time capsule idea? If they're doing it, I'm assuming they did it when they built it.
Yeah, so they put it in, and it would have gone in sometime around 1922, I guess, as they're laying like the main.
What was it encased in? Or was it?
It was like a galvanized metal box.
Oh.
I mean, it was just a metal box. That's all it was. And the contents inside of it, they weren't wrapped or anything. So inside of it, there was a Bible and a hymnal and a book of discipline, which for us, the book of discipline is a book that contains like our articles of religion as well as organization for like how do you organize your church, because we're part of a denomination. So it's those 3 books, and then it was also a lot of newspapers and lists of church and town leadership. And the fun thing about like the hymnal at the time is the hymnal was like
Really?
little. So you could look at a hymnal now, and of course it's like big,
Yeah.
right? But the hymnal then, all it had was lyrics. And
No
then
music.
no music.
Right.
So the way it would work is like whoever was playing the music would just say, this is the tune of whatever, they would name the tune, or they just play it and you just figure it out. You just like jump in with the other people who know it, and you sing along, which I think is probably how most people sing music anyway.
Yeah.
We could save ourselves a lot of pages by not printing the music.
I was thinking about this the other day. How much of the hymnal do you use in the church?
It's a good question.
If it's I don't know. I'm looking at one now, but if it's 750 pages or 500 pages.
Yeah. Man, that's a good question. I would bet most people are probably familiar with a quarter of it, if I had to guess. We try to expand people's imaginations and enter into our repertoire new songs every now and again, which is just like hard for people.
They just
and
want
I get
the
it.
hits.
Huh?
They just want the hits.
That's right, which are from like the 1800s.
Yeah. I remember when I went to church as a kid, because I had the hymnal.
Yeah.
I was like, this thing is massive, but I don't know any of these songs.
That's right. That's right. But there's some really good ones in there too. And this one for us came out in like 1988 or something like that. So they were really intentional at that point about including songs that were not just from like the North American church experience, because we're a worldwide denomination. So they're pulling music from like the United Methodist Church in South Korea, or from the continent. Mm-hmm. And it's translated into English, but as a way of recognizing, hey man, we're part of a body that's full of people who don't look like us. Let's learn to sing each other's songs a little bit. Like there's one song in our hymnal that I just like keep pushing for us to sing as often as possible. It's "Lift Every Voice and Sing," which you've probably heard at some point.
Maybe.
It's always a song that gets sung at the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration up in Texana, and people often think about it as like the African American national anthem.
Okay.
It's a beautiful song, and
where did it come from?
James Weldon Johnson wrote it in Jacksonville, Florida, in like the turn of the 20th century. And it really does, it tells the story of African American experience of pursuing and living into and increasing levels of freedom in the United States. And it doesn't shy away from like difficult parts in the song either. There's some, as far as hymns go, I would say graphic language. But I think that's good. I think it's honest. And if it tells the story of the African American experience in America, it tells the American experience. A while back, or every now and again, it gets suggested that song should become our national hymn. So we have a national anthem, which is Star Spangled Banner,
we're talking
right?
about America's national anthem. Okay.
America's national anthem. So this song gets suggested as being the national hymn. And John Lewis, before he passed away, was one of the people who helped was one of the most recent ones who pushed that. It hasn't become that, but increasingly.
We have a hymn?
No.
Oh.
But like in the Super Bowl, they sang the song before the Super Bowl. Lift Every Voice and Sing. Yep. In the last couple of years they have. They definitely did this past year.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that. I'm sure that I've heard it, like you said, and I just didn't know the name.
Yeah. It's a good one. It's a really good one.
What's the oldest member of the church here?
I think
who is the oldest member of the church?
The most mature member of our church, I believe, is Martha Palmer.
Ah, okay.
So Martha, sometimes when she's here, she sits right there.
Yeah.
And there are times when there are 4 generations of Palmers.
Oh, wow.
In the church, and it's just beautiful.
I'm not going to ask how old she is because we've had a bad run of asking people how old they are.
35, I think.
Yeah.
So she was baptized in this church when she was a little girl, and the pastor at the time brought back from Jerusalem this little blue jar of water from the Jordan River, and used that jar, like poured water from the Jordan River into the baptismal font that he used to baptize her and these other 2 little girls. So she gave that jar to the church for our history cabinet, and I use it whenever we baptize kids. And I've run out of Jordan River water.
Yeah.
I've tried to ration what I had, but I'll put water in there, and then I'll pour water from that jar into the other water and say, this is a sign not just of our connection to the like church around the world and throughout time, but to our immediate family here, in this community. Like you're tied to this local story through this like artifact that is a living part of who you are now. And I just think that's a really cool, to me, that's a cool part of our kind of custom that we've added into the ritual.
So you have a history cabinet?
Yeah.
Is it like a
Yeah.
glass case?
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it's next door in our education office building. So it's got a lot of like old pictures of the church, and then back when we used to use silver when we would like serve different things. There's some old silvers over there, but also like that kind of artifact, like the that jar that came back from Jerusalem is there. Yeah, pretty cool.
Where's the baptismal, what'd you call it? A font?
Behind you. Yep, it's this that thing. So
I was looking for something much larger.
I know, it would be great if it was much larger. It's just a bowl. So I swing that top off, and there's a bowl. And I tell people all the time, people who remember, like in the Methodist church, they think of baptism as like sprinkling, because they remember pastors just like sprinkle water over your head. And my training and my just convictions are the more water, the better. So if I'm holding a baby, I'll scoop as much water and get them as wet as I can. If it's a kid that can stand or an adult that can stand on their own, I'll get a humongous handful and get them really wet.
Yeah.
But the wetter, the better. And I tell people all the time, if we could like bring a horse trough in here, that would be
ask if
my
you knew,
favorite
like,
thing.
Baptists just
Yeah.
they totally submerge.
Yeah. And we do that too if I can get to some water to let me do it.
Yeah.
Like we've taken some folks down to the Hiawassee River where a church member has a house, and we'll go out into the river there.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. That's my favorite way to baptize someone. We'll get like the church, we'll go down there and we'll sing. And yeah, I love that.
I've been a part of a few of those.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to consult my list. I'm trying to make this a thing. What did you have for breakfast?
I had eggs over easy, biscuits and gravy, and some sausage, and a lot of coffee. And a protein shake for my first breakfast before that. Earlier.
Oh, yeah? Do you do any exercise, physical activity?
Yep, try to work out a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
Yep, and then carry children around too.
How many do you have?
Two.
A
son who's 8 and a daughter who's almost 5.
Okay. So can you lead us, Wil Posey, early life, where you grew up, born and raised?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in a small town called Live Oak, Florida, which is about 15 minutes south of the Georgia border. It was a town maybe 115 people larger than Murphy.
Okay.
And very agrarian, like a lot of agriculture kind of determined our livelihood and the work of folks there.
Pastoral, you might say.
Pastoral, you might say, yeah. The crazy thing is, coming to Murphy, like I grew up, it's a really small town, county seat. My home church, United Methodist Church, was the same architectural plan as this church.
Okay.
No kidding. The stamped tin ceiling and the lanterns are the same in my church that I grew up in as they are here. No fooling.
Really?
We were the Swanee Bulldogs. That was our high school mascot. And here we are, the Murphy Bulldogs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a crazy, like alternate universe when we knew we were coming to Murphy.
That is.
But so I was born and raised there in Live Oak, and all of my growing up was there, all through high school.
What were you, early childhood, did you attend church?
Yeah, so I grew up in a United Methodist church. I'll tell people I'm a child of the institution in a lot of ways. Like there's never been a time in my life when I haven't been surrounded by crimson or burgundy carpet and brass on wooden handrails and an organ. That was just always a part of my life. My parents, we were the first people to show up on a Sunday morning. This is just our characters, not me saying anything other than our rhythm was we'd show up early, and then when an event was over, my brother and I were the ones taking trash across the parking lot to throw it in the dumpster, cleaning up, and then turning out the lights afterward.
Just very involved.
Yeah. And my parents really modeled that and showed us what that looked like to be really involved and a part of a community.
Was it a Sunday only, through the week as well, Wednesdays?
It was mostly a Sunday kind of church. We'd have choir when we were kids in the middle of the week, and I always remember getting picked up on the church bus and having choir and playing on the playground, and Ms. Ruby Quimby was our music director. Then we got older, there's youth group on Sunday afternoons. But that was just like, I didn't have any family in my hometown, and there were some other kids, all my friends, none of us had family in the town we grew up in. And so we became each other's families, like 4 or 5 of us, and we all went to the same church, and so church became for us family in the very best sense of the word. I know church family can become exclusive and can be really negative for people. I totally get that. For us, it was family in the very best sense of the word.
Okay. How do you think it turns negative?
When it becomes exclusive and insular, I mean, it's really easy for like a family system to become closed, which makes it hard for other people to become part of that. And in those places, like that's where you find like cliques, or a church that becomes a clique. And if the church is going to be a family, it should be an adoptive family, because all of us are adopted into God's family, and so we got to have like an open posture toward being adoptive toward other people as they become part of an interesting, diverse family.
I guess I'll call it human nature. How do you mitigate that in the church here?
Human nature's in like conflict arises.
Well,
and
I'm just
people
saying
are
as
people.
far as something becoming cliquish.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
I think that's as old as the Bible.
yeah.
So it's not like we have to do anything new or inventive to name it.
Yeah.
So you read the New Testament, and like Jesus was raised from the dead 10 years ago, and Paul is talking to the church in Corinth and saying, stop dividing up into small groups among yourselves and saying one's better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime a church thinks like, oh man, we got it hard, like read the Bible.
Yeah.
You'll discover there's nothing new. Like Paul says, there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female. And I've extended that phrase in this church to say, there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, local or non-local, Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter your family's last name. Everybody's got the same status here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a repetition of that as a true message, but also like embodying that too. Like who is in leadership position matters, or who stands in front of a congregation matters.
That's a good thing. How is the hierarchy of this church? How does that function if people are in different positions of leadership? What does that look like?
So we're United. We're Methodist, United Methodist, and that name initially was like a derogatory one.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, what is a Methodist?
Yeah.
Where does it come from? What does it mean?
Yeah. So it was derogatory.
It was derogatory?
It was derogatory.
So
Totally.
I think, like, I have been told before that maybe you could take Mormon as a derogatory term. But I have some friends that do follow that faith, and they told me that they didn't consider it derogatory. But I didn't know if that was similar.
Well, we don't think that anymore ourselves. It's like kind of like our own like inside joke, I suppose. But so when Methodism was starting, it was in the mid 1700s in England by a guy named John Wesley and his brother Charles. Okay. So they belonged to the Church of England at the time. And they kind of like were looking around the church, and they thought, man, it doesn't seem like people are taking their faith as seriously as we think they ought to. Like we want to strive for a higher level of like loving God and our neighbor. So they laid out this like pretty strict and stringent regiment or discipline or method for how they were going to pursue a life of holiness on their own as well as a small group. And their like peers at Oxford said, oh, look at those silly Methodists.
Yeah.
And they heard that, they're like, huh, we like that.
So they just grabbed it.
Yeah, so they hung on to it. So for us, like that still like trickles down. So I say that for like in terms of our organization, we got committees for everything, and in some ways that's like challenging because we move slowly.
Yeah.
But the gift of it is the leadership of the church or the decision makers, the people who move things are the laity or the members of the church who are not ordained clergy like me. Because pastors, like we move around, we get moved around. But the members of the church will stay the same. They're the ones who make sure that vision gets executed and that ministry happens in the church. So we just have divisions of roles, and we rotate who serves on those committees every 3 years so that everybody gets to take a turn and everybody gets to find ways to employ
That's a
their
pretty healthy
spiritual
term,
gifts.
I feel like.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah. It gives like continuity, but it helps you not feel like you've got a life sentence.
Yeah. What
yeah.
is the committee that votes for the committee members?
It's called the nominations committee.
The nominations
The
committee?
nominations committee. So those are people who try to be intentional about identifying people who make it a point to get to know people, and have a gift inside of themselves of noticing other people's giftedness.
Okay.
And noticing other people's skill and experience, and noticing what does the church need right now. So you might look at a church in the season that you're in and say, hey man, we're in a moment where we really want to think hard about what does it mean to be risky or to take chances and do some new things. We need people in leadership who are not afraid to take risks. Or we're in a season where we want to play things a little safer right now.
Okay.
Who are some people who bring that kind of skill to the table?
I noticed when I attended a couple of weeks ago that there was a need for someone in the sound room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Has that been filled?
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I looked up one Sunday and I was like, hey, there's Rob up there. That's
Yeah.
great. And gave me like the thumbs up and put his headphones back on and kept going.
So the forefathers of the Methodist,
Mm-hmm.
did they write anything down? Were they like, hey, this is how we need to do it? Is this kind of the doctrine? Was that the Book of Discipline?
Yeah, so it became the Book of Discipline, and they're Anglican. So in a lot of ways, like we're like a step away from the Church of England, or the Episcopal Church in the United States. So if you were to look at our articles of religion and compare them to the Church of England, they're just really similar because there was a lot of like copy and paste.
Right.
There were new things that the Wesley brothers and other leaders in the church brought to us, but part of the organization, they never intended to start a new denomination. It was not their goal. It was almost like an accident, truthfully. Mm-hmm. And the Revolutionary War helped speed that up, interestingly. So the part of the method was Methodists didn't just include people from the Church of England. It was all kinds of different backgrounds. They were really influenced by people who were German Moravians, and picked up other gifts from Eastern Christianity, like we would think of Greek Orthodox or Russian Orthodox churches. But they were organized by groups of 12, and it was according to where you lived. And so people, if you wanted to be a Methodist, you had to meet every week with your class, what they were called. And it wasn't like a Bible study. It was a time where me and you would sit in a room together, all 12 of us, and I would say, Jesse, how is it with your soul? And you'd
Just
tell
bear
me,
it all.
you'd lay it out there, and I would try to, and I'd hear like, how are you searching for, how are you pursuing God? What are you hearing from God? How can I encourage you in your life of faith? And that's what we would do every week. And if you didn't show up, and if you consistently didn't show up, we'd say, hey, no harm, no foul, but if you're not committed to doing this, it may be better for you to pursue your faith in a different place, which sounds like hard to say, but that was, they were like on fire for wanting to be people who were really earnest in the pursuit of a life characterized by loving God and neighbor, and to take that real seriously.
Do you think there's room for that today?
Man, that's a great question. There's been a lot of water under the bridge between the late 1700s and 2025, and included in that water is COVID. And the model of what church looks like has just changed a lot.
Yeah,
but I think when we're at our best, we find a way to do that old thing in a new way, like to put people in smaller groups. where they're intentional about having open and vulnerable conversation and intentional conversation about how they pursue in their life together. Because it can't just happen on a Sunday morning in a big room. It's got to happen in smaller places.
Do you think most meaningful conversation happens Sunday morning or in a different meeting style?
I think it probably happens in smaller groups, or in one-on-one conversation. I mean, we hope that Sunday morning is that time where people can gather together and be one body together and are worshiping God together, and experience the gifts of being together with a diverse group of people, and can hear a message that stimulates or expands an imagination for a life of faith and faithfulness that we hope is part of a continuing conversation. I told our intern who's here this summer, a sermon is never a finished thing, and it's always something that is in process. So it's a part of a much larger conversation that we're having in the church or with the congregation.
Yeah.
It just happens to happen for about 15 minutes on a Sunday morning, but it's a part of a bigger conversation we're having.
The sermons that you have on the Sunday mornings, do you plan them throughout the week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I'm on top of things, I look, weeks and months ahead, so that I have an idea of kind of what I'm planning for. Because for me, sometimes I have a hard time like the week of pulling stories or remembering things, and so if I know where I'm headed in the next couple of weeks, I can like drop stuff in those buckets out ahead of me, and pick them up as I get there.
Do you ever get to a Saturday evening and everything's just thrown out the window and it's like, man, I really want to talk about this, but I've planned this?
Yeah, I've done that once or twice. Or there are times where, like on Sunday morning, like I wake up and I'm going through my sermon early Sunday morning, or coming here and I'm talking through it, and I think that is not going to work.
Yeah.
Or something happens in the middle of the week that changes, like an experience or a story or an encounter with somebody, and I realize, this is really the thing that needs to be said, or the story to be shared within this context. So yeah, that's happened a time or two.
Are you available to the congregation for one-on-one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. So I meet with folks and we'll talk, and I would think of that as more like spiritual direction, but I recognize I'm not a counselor. I mean, that's not my training.
Yeah.
And there are other people who have gone to school and learned an explicit and really important set of skills that make them good counselors. So it's important to me to know the limit of my ability and to know when I need to refer somebody to someone else. Because I've gone to counseling before and I've really benefited from that. I think everybody could benefit from a healthy relationship with a good counselor. But yeah, I do meet with folks, and we'll talk about all kinds of stuff together.
Yeah. Your training, you mentioned training. What does it look like training to become? Is it pastor, minister, preacher?
People call me all kinds of stuff. Pastor, minister. Somebody this morning called me father because I masquerade as a priest wearing this shirt,
Well, I was wondering about the shirt.
Yeah.
Because I just think of
Catholic priest wearing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but it's not, right?
No, usually you're going to encounter folks who are Catholic or Episcopalian or sometimes like Lutheran who wear the collar. But in seminary, one of my favorite, most influential professors was ordained United Methodist pastor, and he always wore a collar. Pastor that I worked with between college and seminary always wore a collar. And I remember hearing somebody in seminary talk about, like, the reason they wore this shirt was so that wherever they went, people knew that, this is a person with whom I can have the most meaningful conversation of my life right now.
Yeah.
Or I can go to that person and talk about nothing at all. And in wearing that as a uniform, as a sign of, here's who I am, and I'm available to you, has kind of been a gift. I mean, what it does is it invites meaningful conversation. It also invites people to tell me all of the reasons they hate the church,
Mm-hmm.
which I also love. Because when people do that, they are sharing with you some of the most vulnerable moments of their life. And at the very least, you can say, thank you for taking a moment to be brave enough to share that with me. I'm so sorry. But I had this crazy moment when I was in Hickory, which is where I was before here, where I'm just outside drinking coffee at a coffee shop, wearing my collar, and a guy who I've never met before and never saw after that moment walks up to me, shakes my hand, and presses a $100 bill into my hand and says, I have been blessed by God, use this to bless other people. And he left.
Okay.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
holy smokes, like there are people in the world who still believe that much in God and have that much faith in the church to do good, to just hand some pastor $100. And so I ran back to the church and said, here, take this away from me, so they're like, let's put this in an account so that we can do something good with it, so that I'm not sitting with a $100 bill. But I was just like blown away by that.
Could buy more collars.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Yeah, so that's collar, but it also is like simplicity. Like I can wake up in the morning and I know, like, I'm just gonna put that shirt on. I'm gonna put it with some pants.
So does the white part come out?
It does come out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's real easy. It's great.
So I interrupted you, whether it was minister, pastor.
It's whatever people. Mostly, I'm Wil.
Mostly
for people.
Wil.
Yeah, I mean, people
With
call
one
me
L.
whatever they're with one L. Yeah, mostly people call me whatever they're comfortable with. I mean, there's some people who call me pastor. Some people call me preacher. But it's whatever folks are comfortable with. There's not like a right or wrong answer there. But training, like in the United Methodist Church, it is not a quick path to get here.
Not a quick path.
No.
Okay,
So,
would you like to talk about that point in your life where you said, hey, I'm going to go train? Or
yeah. So I was born and raised in the church. So there's never been a moment when I haven't been in the church. And really, I don't know that there's ever been a moment where I've said, I'm done with my faith, or walked away. And I know it probably makes me a rare kind of bird in that regard.
is that common?
I don't know. I mean, I hear people tell stories about, like, you go to college and you feel like, oh, what the heck does God have to do with anything? You like walk away from your faith or walk away from the church. And that was just never true, like the case for me.
Do you think it's maybe something that they started studying and opened up their mind to some other avenue?
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, like for me, so I grew up in a really small town, and I like the beginnings of my journey into faith, and I'll come to that too, because that's part of my story.
Please.
Is I went on short-term summer mission trips to the Navajo Indian Reservation in New Mexico when I was in middle school and then high school. Went to the same place every summer, like 11 years in a row. So middle school, high school, and college for me, with my grandparents' church from Haleyville, Alabama. So in going out there to the Navajo Reservation, Christianity was still relatively very new and young.
In Navajo.
On the reservation, yeah. And so for the first time in my life, I met people for whom to become a Christian meant no longer being welcomed in your family that you were born into.
Okay.
So to become a Christian was great sacrifice, and could mean like being shunned from your community. And I like saw that faith, and it just like really inspired me. So in being out there on those trips every summer and developing some really cool, that are still alive relationships I have, I started to get this sense of like, might God be calling me to ministry in some way? And at one point I thought, here's what I want to become, like a missionary who lives on the Navajo reservation in Ahogan. I'm going to be a shepherd with some folks out here during the day, and then like do church stuff on Sundays. And then that, like in high school, I was in leadership position in our youth group and got to kind of test out what it looks like to lead devotionals or to be involved in FCA. And as I was doing that, it like felt right.
Mm-hmm.
Like searching scriptures and sharing my faith with other people. So I went to college already with this sense in mind that God might be calling me into ministry.
Was this college, did it lean towards faith-based education, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was Florida Southern College, which is a small liberal arts school. It's kind of like Young Harris.
Okay.
In Lakeland, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit bigger than Young Harris is now. But I went already having this sense of wanting to pursue ministry. And so I met with the chaplain down there and like, hey, I think I want to go into ministry. I think God is pulling me towards that. I have no idea what to study. And he said, well, if you're going to go into ministry, you're going to study theology when you get to seminary. So study something else that's interesting to you or that might benefit you in church leadership. Loved reading and writing, so I got a degree in English. And degree, and everybody said, what are you going to do with that? And English degree makes you a better reader, writer, thinker, and communicator, which who doesn't need that?
Everybody needs it.
Right. So I tell everybody who goes to college, I don't care if you took AP English, take freshman English, don't skip it. I was already in something called the candidacy process for us. So to become a pastor in the Methodist Church, you are a candidate for ministry, and then you become certified as a candidate in ministry, and then you become a provisional clergy person, and then you become ordained. That whole process takes at minimum 7 years.
Oh, okay. So you have to be committed.
You're in, yeah. It's not short. So I started it when I was in college, and what that looked like was my church that I came out of met together and they interviewed me. We had a conversation, and they had to say, yes, we see in Wil what we believe are the gifts for ministry, and we want to encourage and support him in the next steps toward that. So through college, it was just a lot of those kind of same conversations. But while I was in school, like I was just telling people, grew up in a small town. In a lot of ways, it felt like country come to town. Like I'm sitting in a New Testament class. First time in my life anybody ever suggested to me the Apostle Paul might not have written every letter that is attributed to Paul in the New Testament. Moses probably didn't write the first 5 books of the Bible. There's no copy of the Gospel of Matthew exactly as we found it today that is from the first century. So starting to look at how, like, man, the Bible we've received has come from a great deal of really faithful and dedicated scholarship, and have a more nuanced approach to studying the context of our scriptures and our faith. And in a lot of ways, that's really challenging.
I was going to ask, did you have to read things in college that challenged your faith?
Yeah, I did, but yeah, I did. But it was always but it was never anything that undid my faith. Mm-hmm. St. Anselm of Canterbury said that theology is faith-seeking understanding. So it's not faith like given up. It's faith that wrestles with hard questions. And so I wrestled with some questions in college, but never from a giving up standpoint. It was always wow, I have new knowledge. How can that deepen my faith? How can that give me a more nuanced perspective on my understanding of God or what it means to follow Jesus or to be a pastor? And that's hard for a lot of people. And so I try to encourage students who go to school to have some kind of posture like that, to say, man, don't show up to college and dig in with a hardened sense of here's what I know. Show up with an honest curiosity that's open to the idea that you might learn something, mm-hmm. and that God might teach you something new. And iron can sharpen iron, and you need to be open to that.
Yeah, definitely. As I've gotten older, I've realized that there's a lot of things that I don't know.
Yeah.
And I've become more comfortable with that. And if it's something that I care for deeply, I'll seek answers. But it's okay not to know everything.
Yeah.
So this 7-year process,
yeah.
You weren't in school for those 7 years.
I should fast forward that journey a little bit. So in college, started wondering, there was some time in college where I'm wondering, is being a pastor the most useful thing I can do for the kingdom of God, or should I do something better, like become an engineer so I can actually go drill wells and help people get clean drinking water, or become a physician or something like that. And, so I wrestled with what ministry looked like, and then had a really great mentor who helped me see, this is what it means to be pastor. And that kind of helped me get recommitted to that idea. So after college, I took a year off from college before going to seminary, and in that year got married. Leah and I got married that year. And then I went to seminary at Duke Divinity School.
Okay.
And that's where I was really studying theology and scripture and Christian ethics and pastoral leadership. So that was a 3-year journey there. And then after seminary, then I got commissioned. So that was interviews with what's called the Board of Ordained Ministries, similar to how, in a law, as you're pursuing law or other professional certifications or credentials, like some credentialing body gives you that credential. You don't just go and get it.
Right.
Same for us. Like we have to go before a body that says, yep, we see that you've done the training. You know how to articulate the faith. You are ready for leadership. You are capable and trained. We give you our blessing. So I did that, and I was commissioned, so I was provisional. So that's almost like a residency sort of thing. You can think about it in medical terms. So resident kind of deal for 3 years, and only then was later ordained 3 years after that.
Wow.
So it's a journey. So like I said, it's not a short process to get to here. And I think that's a really good thing. I think it's good that it takes a long time.
After you were ordained, where was the first place that you went?
Hickory.
Hickory.
So I was in Hickory for 5 years as an associate pastor there.
Is there like an Indeed listing or something? How do you?
That's a good question. Like, how do we get to somewhere?
Yeah.
No, it's so we're like dinosaurs in this regard. Like we get sent to where we are. The word is appointed by our bishop. So we belong to Western North Carolina Conference.
Okay.
And we have a bishop. Ours right now, his name is Ken Carter.
Does that encompass a certain amount of counties, or?
It's like Greensboro to here.
Okay.
And
so there's a bishop for that sector area.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's all these Methodist churches, and they've got all these Methodist pastors. And I tell people, it's almost like the coach who looks at the field of play and says, how do we get the right people in the right position at the right time for the sake of the whole team? So the bishop and other folks, district superintendents, meet together every year. And, they're hearing from churches who are looking for a change in their pastor, or from pastors who are looking to move. And every year they try to figure out, how do we get the right people in the right place at the right time?
I'm sure some age out.
Yeah, some retire. I think there's a mandatory retirement age. I think it's like 72 or something like that. But I mean, folks are retiring, yeah.
Politics doesn't work that way.
It does not work that way.
So Hickory was your first position, and that was an assistant minister? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so I was the associate pastor there for 5 years.
Pastor.
Yep.
What is an associate pastor? Is there an associate pastor here?
There's not an associate pastor here. I mean, so in Hickory, I still felt like a generalist. Like I was doing a little bit of everything, but just had some particular responsibilities around small groups, connecting with new members, and some other specific ministry areas in the church.
What did it look like when you left there? How'd that happen? Did you come here then?
Yep. After Hickory, we came here, and so that was this is the start of my 8th year here in Murphy.
Okay. Did they approach you as the associate minister with an opening?
No. So it was one of those things where it's every year we're only appointed to whatever church we're in 1 year at a time.
Okay.
Which is a weird way to live. But the time came around when we were in Hickory, and I kind of had this sense of, I'm ready to no longer be an associate pastor, and I'd love to more fully live into what does it mean to be pastor. And so I let my leaders, their district superintendent and bishop, know, I'm open to a move if that's the right thing. And it apparently was a right thing. So this church was looking for a new pastor because their pastor was retiring. And the bishop looked at this church's profile and what they were looking for and needed, what this community needed. And they looked at my profile and said, we think this would be a good match. And they said, this is where you're going. And so this is where I came.
How long is that process?
Pretty short.
Pretty short?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I interviewed here or anything. It was, I mean, by pretty short, I mean like I got a phone call one evening, and they said, this is where you're going.
Yeah, really?
And I said, great.
Wow.
Looking forward to it.
Did you have some time with the pastor that was here previously?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a transition time like that. So that happens in April every year. So and the change always happens the first weekend of July. So there's, what's that, like 2.5 months of transition time to be in conversation with the church that you're going to and to prepare the person who's coming after you. So
That's still pretty short.
it's pretty short, but it's enough time, I think, to kind of catch up.
So you're saying that your position as minister is reviewable every year, annually?
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, every year, every pastor and every church submits a form that says something like, here's what's going on in our life in ministry in this church or as a pastor. And the church would say, we would like our pastor to stay, or they might say, we think it's time for a change. And they would say, here's the reasons why. And the pastor says the same thing, sends in the same kind of form. And then there's a conversation that happens around whether or not a change is going to take place. And there's just it's a lot of good conversation, I think, that happens from there.
Yeah. But the congregation is obviously involved in the decision.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So what's the most challenging part of being a pastor for you?
Oh, man. Saying no. So Paul, in one of his letters, talks about wanting to be or being all things to all people. This is not what he means by that, but it's easy in ministry to get pulled into 100 different directions, and to feel like they are all good directions, and to want to give yourself to all of those. So finding the ability to say no can be tough sometimes. So that's one, I think, challenge that I would say that I experienced in ministry, is seeing all of the good that is available that we could be doing or that I could be doing, and figuring out what is the most good and what is God calling us to now, and then throwing ourselves wholly into that. There's always other stuff that comes up, like conflict within church. It's just a perennial thing. I mean, it's just always going to be there because people are people, including in the church. Yeah, but those, I've come to think about conflict differently than I did maybe early on in ministry, and to see conflict really as like fertile ground for growth and for good conversation. And it's a moment for the church to show the world something different. Like, I'll tell people every now and again, like, man, you're pissed at each other. That's great.
Yeah.
Because now that gives you the opportunity to figure out how to forgive each other. You can't practice forgiveness unless somebody has upset somebody. Mm-hmm. And now you've got an opportunity to experience the grace of God. Nobody says, thank you, Pastor Wil, for pointing that out to us. I mean, I don't say it like in those terms, right? Like, people would not like that. But to honestly give people that perspective of like conflict, man, growth comes through that.
Is there a theme that seems to be consistent with those conflicts in church?
Like, around what is the conflict about?
Yeah. Just misunderstanding.
I mean, I think misunderstanding. Yeah, I mean, generally, I think misunderstanding or communication is like at the root of most like conflict, because we don't hear each other. We talk past each other, we talk to each other, but we hardly talk with each other. And if we give each other enough time to like listen to another person, we might find that there's a story underneath the one that we're hearing that changes everything. Like a counselor. So I told you you've had a good relationship with a counselor. So one thing that he told me one time was like, to really listen means to lean in and be willing to be changed by what you hear.
Wow.
And I've always held on to that. So to lean in and be willing to be changed by what you hear.
Hold on. Let me just...
Yeah, right?
Keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you're willing to be curious enough to hear another person's story, I will guarantee that every time you do, you will be changed by hearing another person's story, by really, really hearing it, and by asking curious questions, rather than just telling somebody something. Like, one thing that I tell people all the time, like, politics is a thing. Like, it's a thing. and difference in opinion on important things in the church is a thing. Rather than tell another person what you believe, or to like overload somebody with your, opinions or perspectives, I have just increasingly find it so edifying to ask another person, tell me how you've come to believe the way you do about this thing. Who cares what you believe? Tell me how you got there.
Yeah.
I mean, I care what you believe, but tell me how you got there. Because I can tell you it's hardly ever a short journey for somebody. And we've all been formed by our growing up, by our experiences. And if we're not willing to honor that in another person, why bother trying to debate a belief or an opinion with someone? You're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah. That's really a lot to unpack when you think about all that goes into making someone who they are.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot more than black and white.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Well,
And at our best, I think that makes us compassionate and humble, Yeah.
what's the most rewarding part?
Oh, man. Being with people in the most sacred moments of their life. And those are not always the prettiest moments of people's lives. I mean, ministry, a pastor, is the church giving itself a gift of some person who has the time to be with them in the moment that matters most. So what are the moments that matter most to people? Sometimes it's the moment like when you just found out that your spouse cheated on you,
Mm-hmm.
or you just found out you're having a baby, or your husband is dying. Your kid had a really bad day at school. So the church has received this gift from God of a pastor who can be with you in those sacred moments without any agenda other than to try to embody the love and the healing grace of God. And that is like such a sacred gift. And I treasure those moments that are not always easy, but they're always, in a very full sense of the word, beautiful, I would say.
I think it feels nice for anyone when someone will confide in you, to be able to approach you and to be able to talk to you and to know that you'll listen.
Yeah, like knowing that there's somebody who is there for you to be able to do that with.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, yes. Yeah. And that's a sacred privilege that pastors have, and it's not something, and this is why I think it's really important that it's a long pathway to be here. There are pastors, and we can just like look in Google and find instances of pastors who have taken advantage of that position of,
Yeah, I'm sure.
of pastoral leadership, of people in vulnerable moments. So it's important that people who are in those sacred moments are people who know how to be there without taking advantage of somebody, but who are there knowing their position in the place of like representing God and the church. It's not about you. It's never about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's always about being attentive to what's the Holy Spirit doing in those moments. When it becomes about you and how much you need, or if it's about what you need, if it's about a pastor or any person's need for feeling like validation from that, then that's bad news. That's like alert bells should be going off, right?
Right, I understand.
So
What does the church do as far as community outreach?
like this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. In a lot of ways, like this is a church where the line between like church and community is pretty thin because so many people are just embedded in all kinds of roles and places in the community. So like a lot of church involvement is not programmed. It's almost like somebody hears of a need somewhere and they tell the church and we like rally to make something happen, whether that's somebody's house burns down and we need to take up a collection, or weeds need pulling at the elementary school, let's go do it. in some ways that's kind of how outreach happens. But some of the like programmed stuff or structured things we have include an every other week meal that we have called Soul Table. So it's free lunch for anybody. We first thought it was going to be for people who are like homeless or in poverty. That's not necessarily been true. A lot of people who come are people who are just lonely and need to find a place where they can like belong and have community and conversation. So that's one. We have a group that's been trying to think about like what are the intersections between our faith and justice in the world, and are trying to push deeply on food justice in our local communities. So trying to find other community partners to ask questions about like, why are people hungry in our community? Are there pieces in the system or the process that we can be pushing on more than just giving people food to help move the needle in a sustainable kind of way? That's like upstream thinking. The preschool that we started a year and 3 months ago is for us a way of doing something good for our community, because we recognize like there's a lack of early childhood education and preschools in our community, and this is a way that we could jump into that and try to make a difference. So it's just kind of a couple of
sound like they have their hands full for certain.
Yeah.
Soul Table?
Soul Table.
And that's every other week?
Yep.
Where does it take place, downstairs?
It's downstairs in the fellowship hall. Yep. First and third Thursdays.
Any and all are welcome?
Any and all are welcome. Yep.
How is it difficult to start a preschool?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Boy, we learned a lot about it. And for us, the only reason we were able to do it, like we thought this was something we wanted to jump into, but we just said, man, there's no way this is going to happen. We need a lot of funding. We need a lot of materials. We need like the right teachers and people to run the thing. And at the same moment, all of those things came together.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, the Holy Spirit is saying something to us. We should pay attention to that. And it looks like we're going to start a preschool. So like we got a $50,000 grant from the North Carolina Rural Center. Some great teachers, including one with Montessori-based like background, came to us just like, hey, I'm ready to do this thing. We were able to use some furniture from the old learning center that we bought secondhand from them. And it's just all the pieces came together at the right time.
Feels nice.
Yeah.
Feels nice.
Yep.
The last question I had for you. If someone was hesitant to attend church, maybe they had some notions preconceived or something they had actually experienced, what do you generally tell people? I know that you mentioned earlier that some people will approach you and be very verbal about what they dislike about church or maybe the institution.
Man, what would I tell people who are thinking about coming to church,
just
but are
hesitant
about it? I would say God bless you for being brave enough to take a chance on church, even from that place of hesitance, for starters, because it can be difficult to walk into a room that you might not know anybody.
Yeah.
In a situation where you're not sure why people are standing or sitting when they do. But I would also tell people, your first experience is going to be informative for you, but you got to, I would say try a couple of times. Wherever you go, if it feels good enough to come a second time, go a second time. Because you never get the full experience of a people in one experience. And try to experience a smaller group within a church. Because that's where you really get to know people. So I think giving people more than one chance is good. If they earn it the first time, give them a second chance. And if they earn it the second time, give them the third. And get to experience what a church is like outside of Sunday morning. Because that's when I think you really experience a community that cares about each other and cares about the community they belong to and that serves their community. I think that's what I would say.
I think that's pretty good. I know that it can be intimidating to go to a new place, and it doesn't even have to be church. just a new place where you don't know anyone, or it's a large group and you may know only a couple of people, it can be an intimidating thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you prepare a question for me?
Oh, I forgot to do that.
Forgot to do that?
Shoot. Now I need to think about it off the top. You can edit this out, right?
We don't edit.
The head. You don't. You just like put it out there.
We don't edit.
Well, you're gonna get this as a part of what the whole world sees or hears. But I wonder, like,
We edited out his curse words.
did you? Thank you. I don't know. What would you tell people who were thinking about showing up for church for the first time in a long time? Or why would you suggest people might go to church?
I don't attend church regularly. I have attended church. The last time that I attended church, it was here. I don't know, maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
I came a couple of times, and it was just out of curiosity. I'd never been to a service here. I'd been inside the building, but it was never for a Sunday service. And it was simply an attendance out of curiosity. I was curious about a Methodist service, what that looked like. And based on, well, comparable to what I grew up, this is much more structured, and it's, I don't want to say rigorous. Structured is the right word. There's systems in place. You have pamphlets.
Yeah.
We know what we're going to sing. We know what we're going to say in prayer. And it was odd to me, honestly. It was odd, but not in a situation where I'm disparaging it. It was just very different. I grew up going to a Baptist church, and it was structured in the sense that you go and then you hang out for a minute and talk, and then it says, hey, let's all sing, and they may sing 2 or 3 songs out of 20, It was usually always the same ones, and then the preacher, we call ours a preacher.
Yeah.
He would get up and he would preach. This is Sunday morning, and their volume was always a little bit more than what I'm used to in Methodist church.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
they may scream a little bit. And then there was always altar call in a situation where if someone felt like they needed to approach the altar, maybe they wanted to give themselves to Jesus and God, that they would approach. And I don't know if Methodists subscribe to the term being saved.
not in the same way that others do.
Yeah. But that was a thing,
Yeah.
In the church that I grew up in, and the churches I attended as a young man and adolescent, as a child. And then I got out of it. I don't subscribe to it any longer. I'm not a believer, but I do have curiosity.
Yeah.
So I do attend, and I like to think that I'm very open, easy to get along with. I like to listen to people. I try not to assume that people are wrong if they don't track with how I think. I've become accustomed to being wrong, so I like to put myself in situations that make me uncomfortable. Maybe I don't know the correct procedure, I don't know the answers, and I've become unafraid to say that I don't know.
Love that.
So I started putting myself in situations where I'll go to a Methodist church, and of course I know people here.
Yeah.
A lot of them are Murphy residents, have been for a long time. But I don't go here, and there's always I think there's always the stigma if you go to church. It's kind of like if, they're going to ask you, well, come back, we'll see you next week. And that can be uncomfortable for some people. And it's been uncomfortable for me in the past, but I've found a lot of freedom in just being honest and saying, I appreciate you letting me know. I'm never going to say, hey, I'll be back.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you talking to me. I appreciate you reaching out. I appreciate you taking the time to invite me. And I don't know if I even answered your question.
I have another one. Can I ask another one?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's 2.
So 3?
Yeah, can I get 3?
Yeah.
What is a message you have heard from the church that you wish you hadn't? So what's a harmful message you have heard from the church, generally speaking? And then the second question is, what is a message from the church that you haven't heard that you wish that you would hear from the church? Like, what would you love to hear from a church?
So a message that I've heard that
It's like
maybe rubbed me the wrong way,
Yeah.
or just man.
or that's harmful, to you, or like generally.
I think any message, and I'm not saying that someone stood up there and said this directly, but a message of, I'm trying to think the opposite of being inclusive. What am I thinking of? Where you segregation. When you make yourself different from someone, and you make someone else less than. Maybe if they don't believe, or maybe they believe differently, and then it becomes very divisive about people.
Mm-hmm.
I really dislike that. I dislike when something can be construed to where we believe this, and it's implied that obviously we are correct.
Mm.
And then there becomes a division because there's obviously people that don't believe the same as you, and I guess it gets this kind of animosity between people of different faith, and I don't think that could be anything but damaging.
Mm-hmm.
So I dislike when something tends towards that. And I've really always had a problem with structure, and I don't like the idea of worshiping something that I can't see or touch or talk to. It's always been very difficult
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Yeah.
It's hard for me. And I know that people have conversations with God based on what they say, but I've never had that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was your second one?
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Something that I liked?
What's a message you haven't heard from the church?
Oh, haven't heard.
But you wish that you could hear?
I think just being inclusive is something that they could preach over and over and over again, and it will track with the majority of what the Bible tells us.
Would you unpack that word?
Inclusive? Inclusive, to be understanding of other people, to be accepting, to love other people as they are, just to be open to other people's and their thoughts and how they, what's the word I'm looking for? How someone digests the Bible, how someone takes its words, how they perceive it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you could do any better than to tell people that they need to love their fellow man.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd fix a lot of things if we could consistently do that.
Yeah. It all comes down to this, Paul says, loving your neighbor. Yeah.
Just to be understanding. I may not agree with you, but I need to be open to the idea that you arrived at your current state because of many life occurrences, events, consequences.
Yeah.
And then I've never met anyone that was actively opposing me just to oppose me. And I think that you're validated in your opinion, but I may not agree with it.
Mhm.
I recently wrote something in the paper about, I wrote a response column to another column. It's a little too convoluted to get into, but one of the things that I wrote that I really liked that I said it and it felt real was, if me not believing, if I don't believe, that doesn't mean that I oppose.
Mhm.
I think sometimes people think if you aren't a Christian, a follower of the faith, that you oppose them, and I don't think that's true.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, like, church folks get this sense of like a victimhood or a victim mentality,
I think so.
and that's kind of odd to me.
I get it. I get it.
I mean, you're talking around like a phrase. I wonder what you think about this phrase, convicted humility.
Convicted humility?
So
I'd have to unpack that one.
I picked that up from our Bishop, Ken Carter. We have big conversations around sexuality within the United Methodist Church. And the United Methodist Church has moved toward a place of greater inclusivity, which I think is a good thing. And he used that phrase, convicted humility, to say, I think it's good for us to have a deep sense of conviction, knowing that every person has come from a different place, and a humility that goes along with that. Like, to not just say, it doesn't matter, but to say, here's what I believe, here's how I've come to that place. I hold that conviction, but I also hold it with humility because I might be wrong.
Yeah.
And if we have that kind of posture with one another, boy, that changes everything, doesn't it?
And it
So
does.
that's like the phrase. So I don't know if that's.
If I can
helpful
talk to you and not get angry, we're moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But if I talk to someone and I disagree with them and it just turns into a yelling match, then we should probably just stop.
Mm-hmm.
Convicted humility. Glad you explained it because I was still trying to unpack it.
Yeah.
I think that's it.